After creating this layer for the squash head, I'm going to try to create a new layer, but now for the jaw. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these static layers, and I'm going to create a new layer called jaw. That's the name of my layer. I'm going to create a rig for the layer. In this case, the rig for the layer, it's going to be, let me put this into a function, def facial rig. I'm going to name this, and I'm going to omit this facial rig code that it's inside the function. Only this one in the lower part is going to run. And let's create a rig, static rig for the jaw also. The jaw, there is already a rig here in the rig facial that creates the jaw, if I'm not mistaken. Let's go to the mail and rig facial, and here there is a create jaw layers, which creates the jaw. Pretty much this is what we are going to do. I'm just going to show you how it's going to work. This is a little bit slightly more complicated. It has two layers, one that's called mouth open and one that's called mouth close. I'm not gonna get into details here. In this case, I'm just going to create one rig for the jaw, and I'm going to create the rig of the jaw. And the rig of the jaw, if I'm not, it should be around here. Facial definition, jaw layer, geometries on the jaw layer. So it gets this from the facial definition in this case, which we don't have here. And the rig of the jaw should be created. Let me look for it. It's here, rig facial, rig float switch, rig facial. It's not here. Static connections, plane shapes. The jaw is going to be, this just creates the jaw layers. It doesn't create the jaw. It's a rig that's also here in RMPy. RMPy, where's RMPy? Here in RMPy, in facial, and it's called rig jaw. So I'm going to take this rig also here. I'm going to try to build it in rig facial. So pretty much is the same, but in Raul, of course, in layers. I'm going to, from RMPy rig facial, I'm going to import a rig that's called rig jaw. Right, rig jaw. And once I have this rig jaw, what we are going to do is we are going to create it. Rig jaw dot what it's called, the rig. We can see here. It's called rig jaw. Rig jaw. And this, we're going to call this rig jaw equals this, and this should run the rig jaw. Let's try and find out what it's doing. We need to create it, point base, I guess. We can see the example here. We need jaw reference points, so let's create it. Let's go and create some points for the jaw. How can we create these points? Let's do it with locators. So let's create some space locators for the jaw. Space locator for the jaw. It's here. Once again, remember, most of the times is X pointing forward. So I need to rotate this so X is pointing forward, and this is going to be my jaw. I can place it here, pretty much where I want the jaw. I can see just the head if I want a clear idea of where the jaw should be. This is the jaw, this is the head squashed. Yep, let me remove this plane shape. I have here many things in this. Let me delete plane shape. And now I'm gonna figure out where I'm placing this jaw locator. I'm going to select it and maybe I want it usually will be around the origin of the ear, but in this case I feel it's too far, so I'm just going to put it here. I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to send it to the forward like this, pretty much where the mouth would it be, somewhere around that. And this is going to be the rig of my jaw. I'm going to select them. I'm going to rename them with my rig tools. I'm going to rename them as jaw. And once renamed, I think I can rename this one again. There's something wrong here with the naming. What is the jaw 1? Looks like there is already a jaw 1. That's why there is no jaw 1. Huh, reference points. Okay, there's already a jaw and a jaw tip in my build, which of course are points that are down there, right? I'm going to then create them. Maybe I can rename them something different. Jaw static or jaw main jaw. I'm going to name this main jaw, so I don't use those points. Or maybe I should use them. Okay, I just call it jaw and figure it out later. I just have this between jaw 0 and join 2 because joined 1 is already up there, right? So just need to be careful with that. So I'm going to print this selection. I'm going to go into the rig builds and I'm going to rig jaw create point base on these points. And let's run this, and once again it's going to create a static system, which is this system jaw, which contains a head, and a rig that's called jaw that contains some points and some controls, or one control. In this case, there are two sets of joints. There are these joints that says FK joint, and intermediate. And there is also this static intermediate zero transform. The zero transform is necessary in every static because it's not moving, and it's where you are going to put the rest of the weighting. I'm going to use the static because this is a static rig. So I'm going to take these three joints. The intermediate, no, only those two, the static jaw and the zero transformations. I'll show you later what's the intermediate for. I'm just going to select this one, and I'm going to do a skin bind skin. Okay, I added the skinning for this one with the joints of the jaw, and now I can move the jaw and it moves the body, right? What I need to do is now paint it. I'm going to do a rigging, skin, paint skin, and all the weight is going to go to the 0, replace 1, float, and the static jaw, it's going to have some weighting here. So I'm going to paint this, maybe something like this, and maybe then I'm going to float smooth, so it just has the jaw, right? And let's see what we got. If I select this and I move it, it's moving the jaw, you see? In this case, maybe when it moves the jaw, I want it not only to move the jaw, I want it to move also the mustache, because it's part of the face, right? So maybe I want to add this also to my static layer. So what I'm going to do in order to accomplish this is select the mustache and simply add it in the layer of the static head, which will be here. The geometry, mustache Raul, also it's part of this layer called jaw. And let's do exactly what I did here, which was put everything in the same rig system. So rig system equals static layers dot rig system. So everything comes in only one package and it's not multiple packages. Right now here I have here my geometry in the kinematics, and I'm going to save this skinning. Let's save it. Skinning, no, I'm I'm sorry, where is it? In the builder, save data, skinning, save skinning. I'm going to save the skinning of the head, right? And let's try to save also this shape, save shape, in case I need it. And I'm going to delete these two layers, these two things. I added already the mustache to the layers here. And let's run this code again. Let's save it, run it, and I have here the system jaw, which contains this jaw. And notice how, well, I need to load the skinning on this one. I'm going to load it just so you can test it and see what I get. It's moving the geometry, and maybe why not I paste the weights from this one to this one to the mustache static. Look, the name of this geo is mustache jaw mesh. So I'm going to select this one and I'm going to transfer the weights from one to the other. So I just go there, and to transfer the skinning, I go to the rig tools, skinning, copy skinning, and now I can move the jaw. And look how this moves the whole mustache. Maybe what I could do is modify the painting a little bit of this so it has more influence on the tips of the mustache, right? The jaw. So let me add some weighting, 0.05. Let's add, and let's start adding some weighting here. So they are maybe affecting a little bit more the tips. Maybe something like this, I imagine, being affecting a little bit more the tips, like this. Let me smooth it out. Actually, I can just smooth it out from here, and let's see how that goes. Let's select again just the layer. And if I select this one and I move it, look how it's moving the mustache, right? But I wanted it to affect these tips, right? Let me try to paint a little bit more the tips. Okay, let me add and smooth, add and smooth. Let's go to the zero transform and smooth. Yes, I want this to smooth out here, and maybe I want to add a little bit to the jaw, to the static jaw. So all this behaves with the jaw, moves with the jaw, and I want to be consistent. I can go to zero position of the jaw, and I could just mirror, right? Rigging skin, mirror skin weights. I select this one, and there we go. Now it moves the whole tips of the jaw. It moves the whole tips of the jaw, and it moves the jaw, right? So this is what I wanted for the mustache of Raul. So he can talk like this, and it's affecting the whole this. Now let's try to build both at the same time right now. Okay, I saved the data for each one of them. I'll do that in the next video.